special guest, Emily Doza. Emily has been studying book bans in public schools, and today we're going to get her opinion on the subject. Oh, here she is now. Good afternoon, Emily. How are you today?
Glad to have
Me too. I'm very excited.
you. Me too.
So, what have you been up to?
Well, school's been pretty crazy, but I've been really digging into these book bans and
Yep.
getting the scoop on it and formulating my own opinion.
Let's
So I'm
go
very
ahead and get
excited.
started.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
First question I have for you is, what do you think censorship means in the United States?
I think censorship is a lot different than it is in other countries when it comes to the United States. Because according to our First Amendment, we do have like freedom of speech, freedom of publications, and things like that. So when it comes to censoring, I don't think it's government censoring the people. It's definitely people censoring the people, which is why I've been focusing specifically on book bans in public schools, because that is our community. That's our parents asking schools to ban books. It's the school
Right.
board asking the school to ban books. So I think it's really important to focus on that aspect of things.
The second question we have for you is, one of the most controversial books that have been banned is To Kill a Mockingbird. What important impact do you think this book has on young students?
I think this book is very important when it comes to teaching students not to discriminate. I personally moved around schools a lot when I was younger, so I had the pleasure of reading the book in the 6th grade, the 8th grade, and my junior year of high school.
Wow.
So I've gotten a lot of different aspects of learning because I was at different stages in my life during those times. I think one of the most important things of the book is showing students what the civil rights movement was coming from, the time of that book when she wrote it.
Yeah.
So there are many things and lessons that can be pulled from this book, and a big one is the insight of the civil rights movement. I do know that from my studies that a lot of books like this are being banned because of its language. This book in particular was banned because of its use of the N-word throughout the book. Obviously, I'm not pro use of that word, but I think when it comes to this book in particular, that the use of that word is crucial to understanding how things were, and that we shouldn't be using that word. It is derogatory and it's wrong, but like that's how these people were treated back then, and that's what I think she's trying to get across when she was writing the book.
It's the history.
The history, for sure. And according to History.com, one school in Mississippi banned the book simply because it made students uncomfortable. I mean, does that even sound right to you?
Not at all.
I mean, I'm aspiring to be a teacher, so I don't want to stop educating my students on hot topics and things that aren't important just because it might make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, sometimes the truth is hard to hear, but I think the history of it is very important. I read it myself, and it definitely opened my eyes to how things used to be and how they've changed to now.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, should we stop educating our students on hot topics just because it might make them uncomfortable? Like, what about 8th grade boys just getting ready to go into high school who have raging hormones? Like, we should be teaching them sex ed and abstinence and what the word yes means, because if we don't teach them that, like, it's going to lead to bad things. And, like, things like the history of the civil rights movement or the Holocaust, like, we can't take those things out of our lesson plans just because it might make students uncomfortable. So why would we take those books out of their education because it makes them uncomfortable?
Yes, totally agree with you.
Absolutely. And these are just a few things from one book that we as educators would be depriving our children of, and that's not to say the other like 50 to 100 books that are being banned in schools. So my biggest thing is, like, as teachers, it's not our job to shield students from the world. It's our job to
question we
prepare
have
them
for you
for
today
it.
is, how do you feel about books that talk about the LGBT community? Should they be banned in schools?
I do not think they should be banned. There is one instance I know I've heard of. It was a book about two father penguins came together to raise their child penguin, and so this comes to same-sex marriage. And I don't think as teachers that we should be shielding our students from this or saying that it's wrong, because one, there's a good chance when I become a teacher in the future that I will have a lot of kids with same-sex parents and other things like that. And it's important for me to educate my class on those topics so they're not surprised when they're brought up to those situations.
Right.
Like, this is the world they're going to grow up in, and I have to prepare them for it.
I think it's definitely important to introduce them to those topics so they're more accepting of other people and understanding.
Yeah, it brings me back to the separation of church and state. Like, and me as a teacher, I can't make them have my opinions when it comes to religion. I'm not going to push what I think they should do. I'm going to push what the world is doing so that they're aware of what other students in their class might be going through, or people that they're going to meet in the future. They understand it better and can formulate a more well-rounded opinion.
Us as teachers definitely shouldn't teach them this is right or this is wrong. Just make them aware
Yes.
of all the possibilities.
Yes, especially to be culturally responsible.
Exactly.
They need to know, like, what are all the things that are going on in the world, and not just
Right,
what you
very
think
good
is right and
points.
wrong.
Question 4. What do you believe your job is towards students relating to this topic?
I personally, since I do want to be a teacher, know that it's our burden to teach children, like, how the world is and, like, what's the right way to respond to that. So, like, when it comes to people who are different than you, that doesn't make them any less of a person. It's my job to teach children that, like, going back to Kill a Mockingbird, it's my job to teach them that that was not okay back then. It was not okay to treat black people the way they were treated. And that's why we use that book as a lesson plan. And by banning and censoring important educational books in public schools, we're failing that job and we're failing our students. There are over 49 million public school students in the U.S. and only 3.1 million teachers. So yes, there's a large shortage of teachers today, but that doesn't make anything any different. It's still our job to lead these students who might not have a well-preparing home, like parents who can help them and teach them about these things. It's our job to make up for that loss, for us to step in. And that statistic comes from the National Center for Educational Statistics.
Very good, very nice. Question number 5. Do you think that there are any books that should be banned in public schools?
I do. So I want to get across that I don't think book banning is absolutely wrong and every book published in America should be allowed in public schools, because you might be thinking of certain books like 50 Shades of Grey or Flowers in the Attic, books that, because of their sexual content, lack literacy merit. And these books have no educational value, and I think that's why, like, a main point why they should be banned in schools. They're not, a lot of those books, you can't even buy them at Walmart unless you're 18 years old. So I do think that there's a fine line between inappropriate content and controversial content that should be taught. And this line can be manipulated and crossed in various ways.
Yes, definitely, for sure. Before we end our talk show today, if you have any further questions about this topic, you can go to ALA.org, where the Office for Intellectual Freedom publishes an annual list of the top 10 most banned books in America. And it promotes an annual event called Banned Books Week. This week highlights the value of free and open access to information and the freedom to express ideas even if they are controversial or unpopular.
I think as a teacher it's important to look into these books that are being banned and, like, kind of figure out why are parents wanting these banned from their students, and what can you do to help educate these parents and show them that they're very important educational topics and steps that your children can take to becoming more well-rounded adults. Thank you for having me, Emma. It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you, Emily.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week on Emma's Talk.